News Talk 580 KMJ. California's #1 station for news and talk. The Ray Appleton Show starts.
Whether you like it or not.
Now.
Hey, what's going on? Lots to do today on the Appleton program. We have a chock-a-block basket full of goodies as I reach across the control board here to get it. Here we go. Okay. As you know, the good governor has dumped the budget. And I don't know how big of a deal that is with you, but it may be something worth talking about. Some of the stuff that was in there that needs to come out. I've got a list of it. It's pretty scary. I mean, they did absolutely nothing, they being the legislators, to relieve us of some of the burden that we've had and we've been living with for years and years. So who knows what we'll get next, too. Also, I've got this great list of what San Francisco has banned over the years. Yeah, banned. I mean, you know, they're trying to take over the world with their way of living, and they're banning everything that practically, walks or talks. The Happy Meal, all of that. Of course, that doesn't walk or talk. But this list is pretty funny. And what else are we going to do today? Oh! The California legislators. Should they get paid on a vetoed budget? I got to explain that one to you. But it looks like the governor may have pulled something fast there. Obviously, they got this budget done because they wanted to get paid. You know, there's a new law that says they can't get paid if they don't have a budget. He vetoed it. So does that mean they get paid or they're not paid? We'll play with that. Now, coming up, we're going to deal with a particular group, as I get organized here, that has been pretty nefarious. They've made a lot of news, but they've been quiet lately. Can you even think who I may be talking about? Yeah. It's ACORN. ACORN. After all the stuff that happened to them, it looks like they're, extinct. They don't exist anymore. And they're coming back, though, and they're going to show up right before the 2012 election, so says my first guest here. His name is Robert Vadum, or is it Vadum? Robert, good afternoon.
Hey, it's actually Matthew Vadum. How
Matthew,
are you?
When I say Robert, jeez.
I don't know. A lot of people think of Roger Vadim, the French film director. So
Right.
Maybe you had some misfired synapses there.
Well, it's Friday. The brain usually goes at the end of the week here.
You are totally allowed.
Yeah. Well, they've been called ballot box stuffers, urban terrorists, gangsters. President Barack Obama's favorite community organizing group and former employer, ACORN, is all of this stuff and more. I absolutely cannot stand them. How long has ACORN been around, Matthew?
ACORN was founded in 1970. So, and it grew out of the radical New Left movement in the late 1960s. So they've been around for 41 years now.
What was their intent and purpose when they first came together?
They first came together. They were started as a project of a group that's now defunct called the National Welfare Rights Organization. Americans don't like to put the word welfare and rights together in the same sentence, as you know, and for good reason. They were started as an experiment in multi-issue advocacy, and the idea was, one of the goals was to flood the welfare rolls in order to incapacitate state and local governments and clear the way for a radical transformation of society, and also to get people dependent on the government, because the more people you have dependent on the government, the more they can keep voting politicians back into power who vote for more and more big government.
Well, what's their thinking behind that, though? What's the goal?
The goal is to get rid of America's, basically of America's system of limited government and checks and balances. ACORN wages war against the American capitalist system and against America's democratic processes. They are fairly described as small C communists. They hate America. They're basically the flip side of Bill Ayers. They want to do the same thing, but they tend not to want to blow things up.
Wow. Lovely.
But their beliefs, their political ideology is almost identical to that of Bill Ayers and the Weather Underground.
Matthew's an investigative reporter. He's got a brand new book called Subversion Inc. And this is what, the book that's all about ACORN. Some of the things that they have done in the past that has made news and maybe has not made news. Perhaps the latter. Things that we don't know about that they've done. Were you able to find things?
Well, I was able to find tons of things, absolutely. They storm banks, and they go to bank CEOs' homes and try to intimidate them and surround it with a busload of activists and dump garbage on the lawn and bang on their doors and windows and frighten their children, all in an effort to get corporations to do their bidding and to pay them tribute in the form of donations.
Wow.
So it's a big extortion racket, and it's amazing that Americans have put up with it so long. Someone who does exactly the same sort of thing, but manages to have a more sterling reputation is Jesse Jackson Sr. He is also a master of the shakedown.
Explain President Barack Obama's relationship to ACORN. How did that come about?
President Obama worked for ACORN's Project Vote subsidiary in Chicago in 1992. He led a very successful Get Out the Vote drive that helped elect a very radical left-wing senator, Carol Moseley Braun, in 1992 to a U.S. Senate seat. And that solidified his reputation as an outstandingly competent Alinskyite community organizer, and that got him in the good graces of ACORN and all the other Saul Alinsky-inspired groups, and there are so many of them. ACORN is just the biggest, and then subsequently, Obama lectured and trained ACORN activists. He also represented ACORN in court as the group's lawyer, and he taught the principles of political agitation in Chicago in university as an adjunct professor, as a lecturer. So basically, he taught a course on how to incrementally overthrow the U.S. government.
This is our current president.
That's right.
Lovely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is what the man believes in. And on the campaign trail in 2008, when he was asked about Saul Alinsky, and it's not that he's met him. He didn't meet him. He was only a little boy at the time. Saul Alinsky died in the early 70s, and Obama was born in the early 60s, as far as we know. He absorbed these ideas and embraced them totally, and he's using them to run the U.S. government right now today. The Chicago thug tactics, the idea. Remember when he told his supporters to get in voters' faces?
Oh yeah, yeah.
This sort of brutal approach to electioneering is exactly the sort of thing that ACORN and similar groups, such as National Council of La Raza, believe in. And Saul Alinsky's foundation, his group, is still around today, the Industrial Areas Foundation, although it maintains a pretty low profile. So these people are everywhere. They're in the upper echelons of the Obama administration. Patrick Gaspard had ties to ACORN and worked as an executive vice president at SEIU, Local 1199, the biggest labor organization, I believe, in the world. And he was very close to ACORN and to ACORN's political party in New York, which is called the Working Families Party. The Working Families Party is also in Connecticut and a few other states. And Gaspard was political director. This was in the White House. This is the same title that Karl Rove, one of the titles Karl Rove had when he was in the Bush White House. Gaspard, and this ought to scare the bejesus out of anybody who believes in the American system of government, Gaspard is now the executive director running the day-to-day affairs at the Democratic National Committee here in Washington, D.C.
Perfect.
That's their get-out-the-vote operation. That's how they win elections. And this guy is in charge, and he was in tight with ACORN. At one point, Wade Rathke, the founder of ACORN, identified him as an ACORN employee. He backed away from that later. So it's not clear whether Gaspard actually worked directly for ACORN, but he certainly worked very closely with ACORN, and he did ACORN's bidding whenever he could. So this man runs the Democratic Party on a day-to-day basis, not Congressman Wasserman Schultz, the lady from Florida. She is the figurehead. Gaspard, the ACORN ally, runs the Democratic Party.
Matthew, I'm going to take the first break here, so if you'd hold on, we'll continue with more. When we come back, I'm going to ask Matthew to profile a typical ACORN member. He talks about these people. Who are these people? Where do they come from? What's their walk of life, level of education, socioeconomic status, all of that. And let's see if there's a connection with something. This is KMJ, the Appleton program. Stay with us.
Are you concerned about your high energy bills this summer? Save huge on your energy costs by adding quality insulation to your home from Sacramento Building Products in Fresno. Are there areas of your home that always feel hot during the summer? Sacramento Building Products in Fresno can identify these spots and install insulation to reduce hot spots. With the proper insulation, you can save up to 20% on your cooling and heating costs. Better yet, you can earn up to a 10% tax credit on your insulation purchase from Sacramento Building Products in Fresno, up to $500. You may also qualify for utility rebates. There's never been a better time to improve the energy efficiency of your home, and there is no better insulation contractor than Sacramento Building Products in Fresno. For a free insulation estimate and to receive a $50 coupon, call 321-7390. Learn more at energy.com. Utility rebates depend on availability. Contact the company for details on the coupon. Some exclusions apply. See your tax consultant for details. License number 202026. Sacramento Building Products in Fresno. 321-7390.
Last month, Fresno Acura took in a whole bunch of beautiful Acura lease returns. These particular cars that I'm referring to are pristine, and the majority have complete service records on file, and they fall right smack dab into the certified pre-owned Acura program. To get you into one of these amazing cars, the finance arm, Acura Financial Services, has given Fresno Acura a great promotional rate for all of these certified pre-owned Acuras. This rate is available only this month, June, and I personally guarantee you this is a rate that you've never seen before when it comes to buying a previously owned vehicle. It is way down there, but I want to stress again, this rate is good for June only, this month at Fresno Acura. There is always great demand for certified pre-owned Acuras, so these are not going to last too long, especially with this incredible bank rate. On your approved credit, see one, drive one, and the rest will be history for sure. Fresno Acura is on Palm, just north of Herndon.
Father's Day is just around the corner. What better way to say thanks to your dad than with the Midnight Delight Cake from Cold Stone Creamery? Layers of moist devil's food cake and delicious chocolate ice cream wrapped in a rich fudge ganache. Father's Day is once a year, so give Dad a tasty treat that will definitely have him calling for seconds. Cold Stone Creamery is continuously redefining plain old regular ice cream into something truly extraordinary. Visit one of Cold Stone Creamery's 6 locations in Fresno, Clovis, Hanford, Visalia, and Merced.
Wahoo's Fish Taco would like to say thanks to dear old Dad by giving him some free grub this Father's Day. Mom, kids, get by Wahoo's ASAP to pick up a coupon and treat Pops to the taste of Wahoo's signature chicken or carnitas sandwich. Scrub the socks and the bad cologne this year. Dad deserves better. Get all the details at Wahoo's Fish Taco, Palm and Ease in the Park Place Shopping Center in Fresno. Drop in, have fun, eat well.
Good news for growers with a tendency to overachieve. Belt insecticide is now registered in over 90 crops, including pistachios and alfalfa. Belt goes above and beyond to fight worms. It poses minimal risk to beneficials, won't flare mites, and fits an IPM program in multiple crops, including almonds, grapes, walnuts, and now pistachios and alfalfa. This season, choose a fellow overachiever for worm control. Belt insecticide from Bayer. Not registered in all states. Always read and follow label instructions.
For the ultimate luxury beach getaway, stay at the elegant Dolphin Bay Resort and Spa. Set on an oceanfront bluff along California's central coast, this 4-diamond resort will be your favorite retreat. You will be delighted by the luxurious suites which overlook the ocean. Enjoy a gourmet dining experience at Lido Restaurant and lounge in relaxation at La Bona Vie Spa. Begin your getaway by visiting the website at thedolphinbay.com or by calling for reservations at 800-516-0112. The Dolphin Bay Resort and Spa. The place luxury calls home.
I bet I could learn a thing or two from you.
This is the Ray Appleton Show on News Talk 580 KMJ.
Okie dokie, welcome back. On the line with us this afternoon, kicking off the show, is Matthew Vadum, who's an investigative reporter. New book, Subversion Inc., dealing with that nefarious group called ACORN. You remember them. So, Matthew, if you could, you explain what a typical, who or what a typical ACORN member is. Where do they come from? What's their level of education? How old are they?
Well, I don't think there's ever been a comprehensive study done, but generally, ACORN members come from, they're of all racial and ethnic backgrounds. They're very heavy on African Americans and Latinos among their membership. The organization was run at the highest levels almost exclusively by white liberals, largely from New York, which is interesting. ACORN members tend to be poor. There's some in the lower middle class, lots of labor union members. People like that. Not a lot. Occasionally some small businessmen, but not that often. They're generally people who are at the lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum, and ACORN will typically go in and they'll act like they're taking a survey. They'll knock on a door and say, "Well, we're just talking to people. We want to know, what are your concerns? What would you like to see? What's wrong with this community? What would you like to see fixed?" And so they hook them that way, and then they use them to advance their Marxist agenda.
Yeah, the reason I asked is because I was kind of prodding to see if there was any union connection, and you indicated that there is some.
There's a union connection, definitely.
Some direct and indirect connections with unionism.
Some really direct. In fact, ACORN controlled two locals of SEIU.
Oh, really?
Yes, they do, of the Service Employees International Union. ACORN, they don't anymore, but they did. They controlled 880 in Illinois and Indiana, which I believe is a healthcare workers union based out of Chicago. It was merged into a larger unit within SEIU. ACORN people are still involved with that, but it's not. I don't think it's fair to say they totally control it anymore. Also, the founder of ACORN, the notorious Wade Rathke in New Orleans, he was the chief organizer, which is their word for CEO, of SEIU Local 100 in New Orleans. And then after the ACORN scandals broke, the $1 million embezzlement, and then the undercover videos by the conservative activists James O'Keefe and Hannah Giles that showed ACORN workers giving helpful advice on how to start a brothel for pedophiles. I think you saw those videos.
Oh, yeah.
They did it in California, too, and the videos are always hilarious. I always get a chuckle when I watch them. They disaffiliated. The SEIU basically kicked out Local 100. They disaffiliated it, or decertified it, whatever the word is for it, and now it exists as a freestanding independent union, part of a much smaller network of unions called ULU, United Labor Unions. And of course, Wade Rathke, the founder of ACORN, is still in charge of that bargaining unit.
Now, ACORN has given the appearance, because they haven't made a lot of news lately, that they've sort of faded into the sunset. But not so, you say.
Right, not so, absolutely.
And they're going to be back.
Well, they are back. They are back, and they're right there in your backyard. They're in California. What they did is they had the state chapters break away and incorporate themselves separately under new names. So the ACORN California chapter, which is based in an office on Grand Avenue in Los Angeles, simply changed its name. It became Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment. Nice hope in changing name, isn't it?
Yeah, wonderful.
Sounds really innocuous. They love these names. Anyway, it's the same organization. It's run by the same organizer, a woman named Amy Scher, and it's run out of the same office on Grand Avenue in L.A., and it's the same staffers, the same resources, all the same political alliances. Basically, ACORN thinks people are too dumb to notice. And so that's why they've had the state chapters change their names. They've done it in other states too, like in New York. The New York ACORN has become New York Communities for Change. In Louisiana, they've become, I think they're called a Community Voice. In Arkansas, they're Arkansas Community Organizations. They changed the name in Minnesota, Washington State, Massachusetts. They're New England United for Justice. Here in D.C. and Washington, D.C. and Maryland, they're called Communities United. And it just goes on and on like this. They are basically ACORN undercover.
Obviously, they're going to resurface big time before the critical 2012 elections. Other than getting,
they are, and they've said so.
Other than getting Barack reelected, what are their other goals?
Well, I left out one important thing. Project Vote, the unit of ACORN that Obama worked for, still operates here in Washington, D.C. out of ACORN's offices near Capitol Hill.
Wow.
That's important. I'm sorry I left that one out. Anyway,
that's all right.
What is their goal? They want to get a nationwide voter registration and voter mobilization, or get out the vote as people call it, organization in place to help reelect Obama. That is their goal. They're always trying to push America farther and farther to the left. They want a fundamental restructuring of society. And isn't that exactly what President Obama said about 4 or 5 days before the election? He said, in a few days, we're going to witness a fundamental transformation of America. Same goals.
How successful do you think they were the first time around getting Barack elected? How involved were they? Were they successful? Do you think that they played a heavy part in putting him in the White House?
They did play a heavy part. Some of them supported Hillary in the beginning, but once Obama picked up steam, because Hillary is also a Saul Alinskyite disciple. A Saul Alinsky disciple believes in the same brutal tactics. In fact, she wrote her college thesis at Wellesley College in the late 60s on Saul Alinsky, interviewed him. Alinsky liked her so much he offered her a job, which she turned down. Anyway, ACORN, I lost myself. And what was the question there?
How much influence did they have on getting a Barack elected the first time?
Sorry, this happens when you write a book that's 120,000 words long. You get lost in there sometimes. How much influence? Yes, they were very influential. In fact, Obama paid a branch of ACORN and then concealed the payment. He paid Citizen Services, Inc., one of the hundreds of different affiliates of ACORN, to do advance work, political organizing work against Hillary. And this was disguised as a payment for sound and lighting, stage prep. And then later, after it was discovered, the Obama campaign came clean and amended its campaign finance reports with the Federal Election Commission. So ACORN was involved at that level. ACORN members were very enthusiastic, and as I said, there's a lot and did a lot of work. There's a lot of overlap with SEIU members and ACORN members. SEIU was extremely active and spent around, I think it was $85 million helping to get Obama and Democrats.
No, they're very active out here in California getting Democrats elected. Yes,
right. They only work for Democrats. That's right. And so and then they were so important. They were so pleased with themselves that they even put out a documentary about a year ago called Labor Day, just to remind the world about how SEIU got Obama elected. So the lines between, as I've tried to get at, the lines between SEIU and ACORN are very, very blurry at times. And sometimes they're exactly the same organization, depending upon which town you're in. So Obama owes a lot to SEIU, and that may have been why Andy Stern, who at the time was the head of SEIU, visited Obama dozens of times in the White House, no doubt to talk shop, to talk strategy.
It's amazing. Well, maybe it's not amazing. I don't know who would want to be known as an affiliate of this particular group, but if they're that important to somebody's election, these people that they have backed, once they win, they're sure not giving them any credit that they deserve for helping them.
Well,
is that because of the
organizers like to be invisible most of the time, and it's been one view, and I think this is a good view, a valid view, is that the worst thing that could have happened to ACORN, ironically, was Obama getting elected, because suddenly everybody wanted to know what a community organizer was, and it threw a lot of spotlight on this profession, on this vocation, and it threw a lot of light on ACORN as well, and they were subjected to an unprecedented level of scrutiny, and that's one of the things that got Hannah Giles and James O'Keefe interested in doing that sting operation with the undercover video against ACORN. It's because they'd heard so much about this notorious organization. They wanted to catch them in the act, and they certainly succeeded. So ACORN likes to be low profile most of the time, because they get work done quietly at the ground level, at the grassroots level, quietly behind the scenes. The exception being, of course, when they invade banks and harass CEOs at their homes. Most of the time, they like to be quiet.
I know you're short on time here. We're going to let you go pretty soon here. One final question. Is there any reason to suspect them in being involved with criminal activity?
Well, absolutely. This was not reported very widely, but did you know that in April, and this actually came too late for my book because it went to the printers back in February or so, the ACORN was convicted of felony voter fraud in Las Vegas, Nevada. Nobody heard about that. Did you hear about it?
No, I did not.
It's the first time ACORN, the organization, had been convicted of any kind of election fraud.
What did they do?
What did they do? They offered illegal cash bonuses to their voter registration canvassers. If they exceeded the quota of 20 a day, then they got extra money. And they were really, really flagrant about it, because it was Vegas. They even made a joke about it. They called it the blackjack program, or 21 plus. So, they're joking about about this criminal behavior.
So they were tried and the judgment went against them. They were convicted.
That's right, and 2 senior executives were also convicted and sentenced. They didn't get very stiff sentences, but people convicted of election fraud-related offenses normally don't get very stiff sentences. So ACORN was convicted, so the criminality is right there. And in addition, I did a lot of research, and I found 54 people who were employees of or connected to ACORN in some way who have been convicted of voter fraud or a variation of it over the years. 54 people, which I think is incredible. And this information has never been published before, and it's right there in my book, Subversion Inc. This is a criminal organization. They're racketeers. And this is not just my opinion. This is the opinion of Congressman Darrell Issa from your state. Yeah. And he runs the Oversight Committee in the House. And his reports have identified ACORN as a racketeering organization. They do illegal things. They do it habitually. They do it across state lines. That's the definition of a racketeer or a gangster.
Have they ever done or said anything to you since this book has been out?
Oh, yes. I've encountered a few of them. Generally, the temperature in the room has dropped a few degrees when I've met them. But I also had some very helpful inside sources at ACORN. And when ACORN started laying off people as it began its decline in 2008 and 2009, there were plenty of disgruntled employees who were only too happy to give me their secret internal documents. So,
wow.
When the ship is going down, there's lots of people who are going to head for the lifeboats. So it makes sense.
The book again is called Subversion Inc., and the author and investigative reporter who put it together is Matthew Vadum. And anything you want to add before I let you go about ACORN, Matthew?
Well, they're active. They're coming back, and Jerry Brown, the governor of California, has very close ties to them. He even gave out acorns at one of his inaugural parades as a tribute to ACORN. He worked with them when he was mayor of Oakland, and they helped him in his re-election campaigns. And he helped cover up in the investigation of the ACORN videos in California.
Yeah, as Attorney General, that wouldn't be too hard.
he did their bidding, so he took orders from them. And you remember around that time, an ACORN organizer was caught on tape saying he's spoken to the governor's office and ACORN has nothing to worry about. And that's just typical. When there's a Democrat in office who owes them, ACORN owns that politician, and they throw their weight around.
Wow. Matthew, thanks for your precious time this afternoon. Really liked it.
Well, thanks very much. Feel free to have me back whenever there's some new angle to it.
You got it. We will do that.
Okay,
thanks again.
Thanks very much, Rick.
All right, bye-bye. Matthew Vadum on KMJ, who has this new book called Subversion Incorporated. I love the title of that. And he spent a long, long time investigating ACORN. And, I a lot of you thought ACORN was probably out of the picture, but apparently not, as they've broken up into little organizations and little agencies to do, their dirty work as the election of 2012 approaches. This is KMJ.